Yo, what is up everyone? We are here with another YouTube video. So it's been a hot minute since we've uploaded. So I was kind of figuring out what exactly I wanted to do with my uploads, kind of how I was going to go about it, but I kind of figured out what I wanted to do. And how I wanted to kind of like start working on this stuff. So basically the main thing that I wanted to start working on in terms of just YouTube and everything is consistent uploads, and it kind of took some time to prepare for that. I was also a little bit busy too, and like I definitely could have been a little bit better about my time management. So now I'm going to be trying to upload not necessarily daily, but as much as I can. So basically every other day is kind of what I'm aiming for. So you guys should be seeing a lot more content here, and you guys are going to be seeing a little bit more battle content. I know I mentioned that I don't necessarily do that too much on YouTube, but I do think there is a benefit to doing it on YouTube where you guys can kind of see it and kind of get the benefit of me talking through my thought process without necessarily talking to chat and everything. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. We are going to be using our sand team that we have been using on Twitch a lot. So that should be good for you guys to see and you guys to get a little bit of a picture of in terms of what we're doing and how we are playing it. So, besides that, I mean, I'm super happy to like be uploading more to YouTube and being responsible about that. There should be a lot more content coming out because I have a lot more going on. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And as you can see through the overlay on the side, we are going to be using a team of excadrill, Tyranitar, Salamence, Rotom Heat, Finny, and Amoonguss. We were at 420 rating and we stopped. And now we're at 69.5. Nice. So yeah, we're going to be using this team. We're going to be playing a couple games with it. You guys will be able to see kind of the thought process of the team, the idea behind it, and then we can kind of talk more through it as the thing progresses. So yeah, you know, I always find like so interesting on ladder is like it's a very different mentality when you're actually like sitting here and playing as like sitting here playing, not talking to chat, as besides to like actually interacting with chat, because your mind isn't so much on the chat as it is on the game, right? So there's like a little bit more focus there. We look at this first opponent's team. So I'll talk to you guys through my thought process. Normally I like hide it on stream because obviously I'm trying not to get stream sniped, but over here you can see that there is a Rillaboom, a Finny, a Thundurus, a Landorus, a Heatran, and a Urshifu. So Finny does look pretty good here. Finny is actually able to pressure a lot of these mons pretty decently, but definitely not in the front. I almost like the idea of bringing Sand because Sand actually carries a decent amount of weight, at least in the earlier part of the matchup. And then having Finny in the back to be able to pin stuff like the Heatran, the Landorus, as I mentioned, or the Urshifu is like really useful. Another idea I had too is potentially leading the Amoonguss and Excadrill together. The reason why, you're able to provide good Rage Powder support. We do have a bold Amoonguss, so we can take physical attacks a little bit better. And we can also drop spores on the opponents to kind of disrupt them a little bit more, which is pretty helpful. So that's definitely a good thing to keep in mind and something to do. So I think that for the most part, we can go with that game plan. I definitely do want the Finny in the back because the Finny does actually carry a lot of weight in this matchup. And then it's between like the Tyranitar or the Rotom Heat in the back, but I want the Tyranitar to fix our, or like speed up our Excadrill basically. So that's why I'm going to be taking Tyranitar here. So we'll see what he brings. But yeah, so the main thing that I kept saying is that I wanted to be a little more consistent on YouTube, which is why I'm doing this. So hopefully you guys are going to enjoy this as well, because basically what I'm going to do is, you see on the overlay here, we have a win-loss thing. I'm going to try and keep track of the wins and losses with this team when we are recording videos for the YouTube, so you guys can see how this team does. This team is probably going to be a one-off on the episode. I might be using this team again next YouTube video. But we'll see for sure. We might be using this team one more time for one of the battle content videos, so we'll definitely see. But like, yeah, so you'll see like a Finny Landorus lead from him. So it's like a little bit annoying for us because he is going to get the Intimidate down, and he can always swap out the Landorus, like right, go for a U-turn or something to try and get in a mon that won't get spored by our Amoonguss. That being said, most of the time they're going to airstream into the airstream into the Amoonguss slot, so that they could get a lot of damage off into the Amoonguss to try and kill it before it can spore. And hopefully this guy makes that mistake. Sometimes they don't do that, but most of the time on ladder, they can't get greedy, just like that play was pretty greedy. And Amoonguss can kind of punish that just by going for spores pretty consistently. Also, our own Excadrill getting our Swords up is really big here. The only situation where this is really bad is if the Landorus is Lumberry. In that case, things can get a little bit sketchy. But if it's not, then we just get a free Spore off and we should be fine for the most part. Obviously, the Muddy Water from the Finny is a little bit scary because it is doing a lot of damage into us. Luckily, we didn't get any accuracy drops. However, we don't know for sure if this Landorus has Lumberry or not. So we'll have to wait and see. It is Lumberry, so that's like actually pretty scary. we do have to think about how we're going to be able to bring it back from here. Because, like, we do have our Finny in the back, which actually carries, like, a lot of weight in this matchup, and I don't really feel like giving it up yet. The thing is that we know at +2, the Landers is probably going to kill our Amoonguss, which is obviously, like, not great, right? I almost don't mind going for the Spore here, but the thing is like, I kind of know we're going to die, so it's not that great either. The one thing we could do is we could try and go for the kill into the top of Finny with the Steel Spike. If we get it off and we get into our Tyranitar, that could potentially be good. But we may have to just cut our losses here and just kind of accept that, like, we're going to lose them on. And then bring it back with our Finny later in the game. So I am going to protect our Amoonguss here. I feel like this is the most part. We get damage off on the Finny, which is going to be good for us just for later game, because then it's going to prevent the Finny from being like super annoying to remove, especially for our Tyranitar and our other Finny in the back. And basically what this is going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to get our Finny in to go for a max Hailstorm into the Landers and redirect with the Amoonguss. To be honest, this is a pretty tough matchup, especially with Lum Landers, because Lum Landers obviously can set up in our face with this lead. The other alternative here was to go for a Spore and swap into our Finny. That could have also been a fine play, but obviously it was a tad risky. If the Quake goes in the excadrill here, it's actually pretty bad. Luckily, you went for the Quake into the Amoonguss, so that means we're going to take it pretty fine. That also means we're going to get an Iron Head into the Finny, which is going to be pretty good as well. So that is definitely going to be helpful for us. It's going to be much better in terms of trying to slow down the opponent. A flinch here wouldn't be bad either, to be honest. It's definitely not as ideal. If it's a miss into the excadrill, that could also be fine too. It is not though, so yeah. We do lose our drill here. The main thing that if we do have going for us is the fact that we still have our Tapu Fini untouched in the back. That is still pretty good for us, because now we can go for a Hailstorm and they don't have much to kind of hit our Fini directly. And that's going to be nice at least to get some damage down. I definitely expect an Airstream from him. If he goes for another Quake, it's honestly a better play, because that means he's going to be getting a lot more special defense boost, which is going to make it harder for us to kind of deal with whatever he has in the back. I would love to keep the Amoonguss around. My only concern is that he's going to target into the other slot. See, so habit thing here. So usually during streams, what I'll do is I'll change the screen when I'm making move selection. But obviously, because this isn't live, I don't need to do this. But it's like such a strong habit that I just did it right now. But yeah, honestly, a crit would be really nice. Like, I would love a crit, but like, I don't think we're gonna get it, which is pretty problematic. Like, this is definitely not a great situation for us. The safest play here is Rage Powder, but if they have Rill in the back, like, then it's like pretty devastating for us, because then we're kind of in a bad spot. I'm gonna make the safe play and go for a Rage Powder here. Unfortunately, like, it's not super great, because obviously they're putting themselves in a pretty good position versus us. However, there is still ways to bring it back. We could have brought Mence here. My only fear with bringing Mence was a Thundurus. So it is very smart of them to be going for Quake, so over Airstreams. That is definitely something I respect. I will see, well, I do want to see like what they do exactly though with the Landers, because if they go for a Rockfall, it's actually worse for them, because I guess what they're covering for there is a Salamence, because I could have had Salamence in the back and they may have wanted to cover for that swap. So that is completely valid to go for a Rockfall there. I maybe would have liked to see a different play from them, like just Quake, because at that point, like, you can almost cover with a Moonblast anyways to just commit to like getting either kill there. And honestly, the Landers is kind of close to dying, which honestly isn't the worst spot. Like, obviously it would have been better had we actually gotten it into kill range with Hail. I think that would have made things actually much better. That being said though, it's definitely not like out of our realm of like possibility to win. It's just a lot harder because obviously they have a lot more pressure on us. So the thing is too that we have to keep in mind is like what they're going to target this turn, because so here's the thing, they've been making pretty decent reads in terms of like rock falling into our Amoonguss, calling the Mence swap, quaking into the Amoonguss instead of airstreaming, knowing that we may be Koba and boosting up their special defense. So what that leads me to believe is that they're going to make the smarter play of going for a Quake into the Finny and going for a Moonblast into the going for a Quake and a Moonblast into the Finny. So what I'm thinking here is maybe going for a Max Guard, calling that play, because they know that I could just protect Tyranitar and get my weakness policy, so they may not want to do that. The risk with this play is if they just Quake into my T-Tar, I instantly lose the game immediately. That being said, I'm not in a phenomenal spot anyway, so taking a risk is kind of better than not. But yeah, we'll have to see exactly what happens here. Maybe the Quake goes into the Finny. We'll have to see for sure. Unfortunately, the Quake is going into the T-Tar. Not super great. So we are going to be taking the Quake. That should pretty much seal the game. I mean, we could have gone for a Geyser and a Protect. It was just kind of thinking about what was going to be targeted here. Because honestly, from his perspective, like, the Tyranitar isn't even threatening to you. And on top of that, like, it's more likely to protect than not. So you probably should have just ignored the Tyranitar. But this is also a pretty safe play because what you're doing here is you're boosting up your special defense anyways. And you're getting a Calm Mind boost, right? So that means you're going to be pretty threatening anyways to the Tyranitar later on. And you're going to be pretty threatening to the Finny later on. And you shouldn't die to it. So they kind of made a play that covered for both of it. We were already in a pretty bad spot, so we kind of needed to take a risk. But yeah, we should just lose the game now because we don't have much to kind of break them. I'm trying to think of any way we could really pull this game back. But it basically has to be like they need the Urshifu and the Heatran in the back. And we need to crit them, which is like pretty unlikely given the circumstances. So I think we're going to have to take the L here, unfortunately. I am just going to forfeit. I don't want to waste too much time. And obviously, the more time, the more battles we get, the more I can kind of talk to you guys about my thought process. So that's kind of the idea there. So yeah. And one thing I want to do with this series is I don't just want to show you guys wins. I want to show you losses too and show you the flaws of the teams I'm using and show you the way things can improve. The main reasoning why is because, like, good players don't always win. And that's something that I think a lot of players are just afraid to admit or show, but I don't think that's something you should be afraid to show. Like, there's a lot that goes into your testing period and a lot that goes into your actual playing that's, like, very worthwhile exploring. And, like, definitely, like, Series 7 is a series that challenges your team building skills to a different level because you need to, like, function at a different capacity than the previous formats because there's so many options. There's a lot more to respect in the format. So we're looking at this team. To be honest, this team isn't super scary. It's not anything that's, like, particularly bad. It's just something that, like, is full of mons that aren't as common, which therefore it's probably a worse team, or it's probably a team that's not going to do as well. That being said, you still have to respect the teams you play, obviously, so you don't lose, because then it's even worse if you're like, oh yeah, this team isn't great, and then you lose. So taking a Mungus and excadrill here is pretty much seems like a no-brainer. Protects you against the Gyarados when you lead excadrill. You can go for Swords Dances. Also, too, you have the opposing Tyranitar's Sand to capitalize off of, which is fine. I'm still going to take my own Tyranitar, but it's still nice to know that, like, that can definitely happen. And also taking Rotom Heat in the back is important so we can deal with Metagross, because Metagross is actually kind of problematic if we don't bring something to directly check it, which is why we have our Rotom Heat here. Also, Rotom Heat will also let us target the Gyarados with electric moves as long as it's protected. We also need Tyranitar to deal with Zapdos, because even though Excadrill is Rock Slide, you still need the Excadrill to, like, have extra support there. So that's the main thing there. But yeah, I think, like, the main thing to, sorry if I'm like drinking on the side, by the way, like the drink I got. But, like, yeah, the main thing too is, like, understanding kind of how to learn from your losses and kind of, like, what played into them, if it was more of, like, a flaw on your end or if it was more of a flaw of, like, your team. And kind of understanding the difference between those things is very crucial because it leads you to becoming a better player and just a team builder in general. Because all the best team builders in this game never got there just by, like, doing it. You know what I mean? Like, it takes time, it takes practice, and, like, you'll see a lot of people, like, put out, like, team building guides, stuff like that aren't necessarily, like, the best guides because they still don't know everything about the game. So it's kind of like the blind leading the blind. And, like, any good team builder knows that you always have to build bad teams before you can build good teams. Like, that's just a process of it. However, you should be practicing good habits that are going to allow you to build the best possible teams, which will lead to just better experiences with team building and better learning for the teams in general. So that's just helpful. The reason why we went for Rock Slide here, by the way, is just, oh, I did not mean to move the Finny like that. That's my bad. Yo. Let me fix that real quick. Anyways, so we went for a Rock Slide there. Basically, Rock Slide gets some chip onto the Mimikyu. We also get the chance of a flinch. A flinch would be nice. Not necessarily required, but it's just a nice thing to do there. Break the disguise. Basically, this is to put me in a position where I could go for a double Rock Slide if I want. Luckily, we did flinch, which is actually pretty helpful. So that's going to lead me to my second play. So instead of going for a double Rock Slide, which is just a little bit more reliant on RNG, I can actually just Earthquake and Rock Slide here. And basically, this just guarantees the removal of the Mimikyu, and I also give myself weakness policy. So basically, they're going to try and get the Trick Room set up. It seems like they went with a more Trick Room-oriented plan, which just means that we can Earthquake ourselves. We shouldn't kill our own Tyranitar, barring a crit, which we didn't get. Now we boost up ourselves with weakness policy, and we just get to straight remove the Mimikyu. Even if Trick Room went up that previous turn, we put ourselves in a position where our Tyranitar could take advantage of the actual Mimikyu. So he goes for a Wisp here. That's fine. We have a Lumberry actually, so we should be okay there. We get our status back, and we get the Rock Slide off, which is pretty good. We don't miss, so we should just remove 2 Mons really easily in the beginning of the game. This is like a super good start for us, so yeah. And now we kind of see what's in the back, but yeah, this game is pretty much a wash, just because like they didn't really lead well into us, and they weren't really prepared for what we were going for. We do need to respect the Gyarados. Gyarados obviously a little bit scary for the team, so we can't just completely ignore that. However, it does seem that it's actually Moxie. Oh no, okay, it is Intimidate. I was gonna say if it was Moxie, it could actually be a little bit threatening to us, because then it can kind of set up. It kind of depends on what he maxes as well, and whether or not he has Dragon Dance. So we're gonna have to see that. I'm gonna go into the Amoonguss actually, just to kind of reposition myself. I could go for a Rock Slide with T-Tar here, or a Rock Fall, but I do feel like it's a little bit safer to protect, because then what that'll let me do next turn is then go for a max Rock Fall if I want to remove the Gyarados, and then isolate the Metagross with a Rage Powder as well. And I can also just max one of my other Mons in the back as well, worst case. So it just lets me reposition to kind of get a better idea of like where they are or what they're doing, so that way I can get my Mon into a better position to kind of deal with them. And we're going to see the max the Gyarados there. Kind of the ideal max for us, to be honest. It's actually better, because I was kind of worried that maybe there was like a Dragon Dance and like an Iron Head coming out, which could have actually been pretty bad. But luckily that's not what happened. So but yeah, the main thing too to keep in mind in terms of like how we beat the opponent is kind of just not letting our Tyranitar go down. Obviously Tyranitar is an asset here. Keeping Tyranitar alive is very important. You're gonna see the Iron Head goes in there. So because our Amoonguss is bold, I'm pretty confident we can live an Airstream pretty comfortably. Also, what this means is that we can safely go for a Rock Ball into the Gyarados here, remove the Gyarados while keeping our Tyranitar safe. With the Amoonguss, and then we're just able to remove that Gyarados, win the game, and then we can deal with Metagross on its own because we have Rotom Heat. So basically, like, it's just kind of setting up for a Rotom Heat endgame in the background. We just want to be able to deal with the main threats on the board and finish them up. So now our Tyranitar should cleanly be able to finish up this game. Just go for a Rock Ball into the Gyarados, and then the game should be over. The main thing that I think they kind of through with is like kind of leading like they led awkwardly into us. So they led Mimikyu and Didi, but they didn't really have a Trick Room mode in the back, so we just kind of bodied them anyways. And you'll see the Airstream comes out here, pretty futile at this point. Like, obviously we have a Koba Berry, so we can just kind of eat that up. The only way that this would really like be put into a bad position if for some reason our Amoonguss died, but our Amoonguss is bold, so it is pretty strong versus physical attacks, which is why I'm pretty confident in just keeping it in versus these kind of Mons. But yeah. So we will see Zen Headbutt comes into there. That's fine. That meant the Tyranitar was getting ignored the turn anyway, so we could have even made a read and protected the Amoonguss. Unnecessary risk though, so didn't need to go for it. The Rockfall here is also very good into the Gyarados, because what it's going to let us do is it's going to let us get a normal power overheat off into the Metagross, because the rain is going to be removed. So that's really good, because that means we have a better chance of one-shotting the Metagross, which means like it can't do anything funny versus us. I mean, the thing is, it's already in a bad situation where it's like isolated versus us, so it's not really going to be in a good spot anyways, but that just kind of like seals it for us to put ourselves in like a very good position. So like, you guys see the way this team functions is it's kind of about putting yourself in a position where you can max properly. You typically don't like maxing too early with this team. The main reasoning is because you want to reposition yourself. If any of you guys are wondering how to get access to this team, by the way, Twitch subs have early access to this team. Every team I put out will always be open on the Discord at some point eventually. This team will probably be released on the Discord soon. So definitely worth checking out and joining our Discord if you guys are interested in that. So this was a kind of a wash game, so I don't mind going for one more game just to give you guys a little bit more of insight. Actually, I think that'll be better for our next video. The main reasoning why is because I like to limit it to 2, because that way you guys get to see different parts of this team and kind of its flaws and weaknesses. So like, these games were a little bit quick, which was just kind of like interesting, right? Because it's like you don't want your games to usually go that quickly, because that kind of shows that either the team is a little bit too aggressive or a little bit too weak to something. It just so happened that the 2 people we played kind of had like straightforward teams. But we will get into this. We will be playing more games with this team, so you guys will be able to kind of get a little bit more of an idea of kind of how this team functions, the main ideas behind that. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. We are going to be putting a lot more battle content, so you guys can kind of see my thought process behind things. Should also help you guys a little bit. Thank you again for all the support. I greatly appreciate it. And guys, make sure to check out all the links in the description, coaching, everything else. Definitely, it's like my full-time job, so it's something I take very seriously. Make sure to check that out, guys. Thank you again for all the support on the video. I will see you guys on the next video and for more battles. Thank you and have a good day.